So welcome to our third This Is How I Teach session. We have with us Dr. Beth Bonham, Dr. Kim Parsons, to share with us about how they creatively use wikis in their online class. And without further ado, whoever wants to, I think Beth, I have you all set up first.
So you can first. I want to finish feeding your face.
And I have the handouts that I'll pass out.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. I am delighted to give back. You know, I took the online course. Larissa was my instructional designer. Larissa is absolutely awesome. And to be able to give back with all the different things that you helped me with, I'm just thrilled to do that. One of the things that I wanted to do by using wikis was to use some kind of new technology tool that I hadn't used before. Hi, Walter. I had used wikis in a previous class a couple of years ago, but I used it in a different format. I didn't quite know what I was doing. I didn't get really good feedback from students about it. And so once I had some instruction from somebody who knows, I can use the technology the way that it could be intended. So what I wanted to do was to introduce the students to that. I wanted to use some kind of technology that I could show how students were learning and how their particular learning was connected to the module learning objectives, which were connected to the course objectives. And I have to tell you, one of the things that I learned from taking this course was that when I started going through the course objectives to do the module learning objectives, I went, well, I don't do that. Well, that objective I don't even have any content on. So really, it was a wonderful stop and pause of, okay, so what really is this class about? What is it that I really want the students to learn? And so you've got the course objectives about what they should be able to walk out with. But then the module learning objectives specify how those particular course objectives can be met even more specifically. So what I did was take, show you this, I think. Let's go here.
It's open up on the bottom.
I know it. Just have to get there.
Yeah.
I never use the internal, so I have to remember how to move it. Since we put the course into modules, thank you. The first module has 4 module learning objectives. And so what I decided to do was at the end of each module, the course is divided into 4. The end of each module, there would be a takeaway, a wiki, and the wiki would be the mechanism by which students would do the takeaway. So these are the particular objectives that I developed from the course objectives. And so at the end, you will see in their course assignment, they have at the end of the module here, is that they would do the module takeaway for these particular learning objectives. I have to say also that this may not be an issue for you. I think it is for some people. Some of my colleagues, I think, sometimes have kind of a hard time letting go. My teaching philosophy is such that I feel, I already know this. And what I want them to learn is about it. In fact, if I were really honest, and I say this, and then they all roll their eyes, I'm sure, what I really want my students to do is fall in love with nursing theory. And the feedback from those first wikis, I was really amazed with their language. I loved how we did this. I am excited about what's going to happen next. I've never heard that in nursing theory. So part of my philosophy as a teacher is that I am a coach, a facilitator, and a content expert. And so what I want to do is to see from the student is the active learner. And I think that my job is to help continue facilitating that so that they understand that they are the active learner, that they are not like one of those little birds waiting to be fed. And that might be for a lot of people, because my courses are taught at the very beginning of the master's program in nursing. And so their frame of reference is the undergraduate nursing program, which is very prescriptive because there are certain things that have to be taught and met in order for them to become licensed and to practice. So I'm asking them actually to do a whole paradigm shift and start to think about gray versus black and white, nuances versus this is the way you do this is the way you do this is the way you do this. Because I'm also socializing them into the role of the advanced practice nurse, which is thinking more globally. They have to go global and then come back specific to what it is, what kind of practice they have. But they need to be looking outside and farther than what they've done as a registered nurse. So what I wanted to see then by using the wiki was how each student could take one of these. The instruction was to take, to look at those objectives and to say what it was that they were, what they had learned from this particular module. Back to so in each module, in Module 1 assignments, because see the thing is too, as I was learning how to do wikis, so were they. And so it was also important to be able to, you know, one of the things I learned about online teaching is everything has to be laid out. There is no wiggle. Everything has to be, this is what you do, this is when you do it, this is how you do it. And so the description and the instructions for how to do the takeaway were one of the, in one of the assignments, so that what we had to do is, because some of this sometimes is not user, it's not that it's not user-friendly, it's not real intuitive. So you have this, and this is how you do it, but it doesn't really say edit wiki. I mean, what does that mean? I mean, that seems like wiki, that means edit as opposed to this is where you make your entry. And so that's why we actually put that there so that people would understand that they would click there to do their wiki content. Any questions so far? Okay. So by the end of the module, people then, they have their particular time frame they have to do it. Another thing that I like too is what we do with those modules is there are due dates, but those due dates, everything can be due by the end of that module, which again is another freeing up of the prescriptive, you have to do this, you have to do this. And again, I'm much more interested in what people learn and then how they're able to articulate. So in the Module 1, we had then this whole long list of the students. I have 25 students, of course 23, that then could talk to me about what it was that they had learned. I gave you an example there of the objectives just because I'm old and I like to have things in my hand. And you can tell me that the students don't like that either. So the first module learning objective of identifying and using APA resources, library tutorials, and self-assessment, I just took one example. These are not all complete either. I've edited them for space as well. But in this first one, the student says, not only did I have a nice refresher on APA and the library resources, I got more of an in-depth look at Dr. Benner's theory. That says to me that that student already had a frame of reference, which I was really pleased with, that they knew about APA, they knew what the library resources were, and so they were able to capitalize on that. The second objective of how does philosophy contribute to nursing science, I really liked what the student had to say, that learning is the theory is intertwined with practice in module 1. And that to me is just the epitome of theory-based practice. I had lots of students, and I've had this over time, lots of students say, when they in the class and in the throes of learning go, oh, well, you know, we practice theory every day. We use theory. Oh, well, what kind of theory might that be? Which theory are you using? So they may be thinking they're using theory, but I want to take it a step farther and say, so what theory are you referring to? Can you name that particular theory? Can you name the particular theorist? What are the tenets of that theory that make you think you're practicing that way? Because here's another thought as far as nursing goes. We have had some outstanding, stellar nursing scientists who have developed nursing theory. I am old enough that when I first started as a nurse, we did not have any of our own nursing science. We didn't have our own nursing theorists. All of our theory-based care or research was based on other disciplines. So that care was related to other sciences rather than our own. So to be able to say, oh yeah, I practice from a theory, well, what theory is that? So that you really are able to say that my practice is theory-based and that I can say scientifically, I am proving or supporting this particular theory, which adds to our nursing science, which adds to our credibility as a nursing profession. I do not ascribe to the apprentice model. So a lot of what I'm saying to you now is not only my teaching philosophy, but what it is why it's important to see what the students are getting from this course. So to say that theory is intertwined with practice in Module 1, almost brought tears to my eyes. The third one, compare and contrast a personal meta paradigm with a nurse theorist meta paradigm. You know, this was new language to me. So first of all, you have to understand the language and then be able to define it before you can use it. So this particular student, who actually she's an awesome student, it was beneficial for me to reflect on my practice and develop a personal meta paradigm. The longer I work in healthcare, blah, blah, blah. As I reflect upon my personal meta paradigm, I understand how my beliefs may impact my practice in patients. One of the things, for example, that we are taught as nurses is that we treat people as they come. Here you are, here I am. I'm not going to not treat you a particular way because you either look funny or you're a different race, you stink or whatever. I, as a nurse, accept people. And so I think also what happens over time is, as we are human as well, we might forget that notion. And so to be reminded again in a theoretical sense at a level of becoming an advanced practice nurse that my beliefs may impact my practice and my patients is truly a personal meta paradigm that's very, it's at a higher cognitive level. And then finally, the fourth one, develop a meta paradigm from personal values and assumptions. Module 1 was an introduction to nursing theory, of course. Comparing and contrasting our own meta paradigm with that of another theory was an interesting exercise that allowed us to think about our personal beliefs. It was helpful to reflect back on our own journeys as nurses and apply Dr. Benner's theory to our own experiences. So if by seeing a particular theory that resonates for them in their own practice, and then be able to articulate that. I mean, those are a lot of different cognitive skills that the wiki then affords me to be able to evaluate. Now, what I think is awesome is I use a mid-course evaluation for my courses. So I have some formative data about, is this working? Is it not working? What can we do? What do we need to do anything, to tweak the course as it were? What is really cool about this particular mechanism is I have formative data throughout the semester. So I don't have to wait till the end of the semester to get information that really isn't going to help me. I also have information from the students, which I find very, very valuable. So to have this mechanism of wikis to be able to do that has really enhanced my teaching. I really believe it's enhanced the students' learning. And one way I can measure that is that I have received very few emails and very few phone calls from students this semester with this revised course. So that's what I have. Walter, do you have a question?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yay.
That wiki, do you assign grades to those?
Yes, points. But then that gets it done. What I hate is that even with graduate students, because I did this with a previous class, a doctoral class, with an assignment and had no points, they didn't do it.
Wait, as a graduate student, like nursing course, everybody died in my year, but it's funny because like if I see an assignment that's not working, I won't get up.
Right. Right.
And so I get the little teacher evaluation thing all the time. It's like, yeah, I got 100 emails. Am I going to answer that teacher evaluation email? Nah.
Yeah.
So you kind of got it built in where they kind of have teacher evaluation.
Right.
So I just, that's kind of interesting.
I do too. I think you're absolutely right because, when I first figured out then what it was that we would be able to do because of this mechanism, this technology, I mean, it makes teaching all the more exciting. And like I said, the way the students perceive it, I really loved how we did this. I mean, I have students talking in ways I've never had them talk in class. It's just, and it's been a real revision. So there are 5 points to this wiki, which is really not very much in the scheme of things. And I did that purposefully too, because I really didn't want to have a whole bunch of points to it.
You had 20-some students.
Uh-huh.
Get repetitive? Were they saying the same things by the time
No.
last?
Which that's an excellent question too, because I watched that. I thought, because sometimes okay, somebody jumps in and starts it, and then everybody else starts to do the same thing. No, each student brought up something that was unique to themselves.
Do you think the students went back and read each other? Or did it not matter to them?
I don't know.
They read them. They read them.
Yeah,
To see what everyone else is saying.
I would think so, but
At worst, they're going to read them like what she was saying, that they want to know what's the least amount of work I can do. At work.
And I have to say, whenever Beth and I were in the development stage of thinking about this idea, I was brief, like maybe a sentence or two. And whenever I logged in to see it, I was blown away. I'm like, wow, they actually did an in-depth analysis. I mean, I was just blown away from not just, I mean, the quantity of how much they had, the quality of what they were saying. It was just, and I know Beth and I talked all the time about closing, about, you have these objectives, you have these goals for your course, but here the students themselves are saying, this is what I did to accomplish the objectives. So, and it's hard evidence that you have right here.
Right. Now, this is the first one. I'll be eager to see what the fourth one is by the time at the end of the semester when they're tired.
Yeah.
But I also know that, they don't really do that at the graduate level as much as the undergrads. I think that, I forgot where I was going to go. Sorry. Had a brain fart. This thing in my head, I think my synapses are just like, had to do with what the quality of the quantity. With graduate students. And this is one of the things that I appreciate. There are, I don't know, 3 million nurses in America today. There are maybe 5,000 of those that have PhDs. So you see how, I don't know how many have master's degrees, but you see how that gets lower in numbers. And so when people make the commitment to go to graduate school, these are students who are really very highly, they are high achievers. And so that also makes it fun to teach. But I think that's part of the issue with the master's program as well, is that it's a group that's self-selected, and so we might get something that we didn't expect. But all in all, I think I just skimmed over. We're into Module 3 now, and I just skimmed Module 2, and I have to look at those and see those. Module 2 will be interesting because that was different assignments. It was a group activity. I've never done a group activity in person. So they're different things.
So you have a Module 2 with
Want to see it? Maybe I should look at it.
Now, I was just thinking, like, whenever I do group assignments, they have, like, group evaluations. Most of the time, I don't want my fellow classmates to know what I'm getting ready to say. That's what I was thinking.
Oh. Well, and here's another point. And this has been from previous classes because I've taught this class for 6-7 years. I got feedback along the way from students who really asked for more interaction. They asked for more they want to be together. And so by doing the group activity, it was a way to facilitate that for them. While they chose an online program, they have to do things online. But that doesn't take away from the fact that people still wanted that the students still wanted a human connection. Okay, anything else? I don't know where yours went.
No, I don't think mine.
You. I only know how to use Macs. Good Lord.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
You want Firefox or Explorer? And I would do Chrome. What? What's that? This one.
Yeah.
Seriously. Good Lord.
Well,
What'd you do to me, Beth?
really, because I can't use Chrome.
Oh, no, I've got a long
I can't use Chrome to get into library.
Huh.
I can't use Chrome for Blackboard. I gotta use
Didn't Firefox?
I'll talk to her about it later.
Did we get an email saying Firefox doesn't support Blackboard anymore?
No, you didn't get that email.
Sure? Yeah.
Yeah, like that's been a rogue email.
Well, now I have to go back to Safari.
Oh, you're talking about like Mac.
Yeah. It's Firefox.
I personally didn't send an email. So
yeah.
it didn't come from me, and I wouldn't trust it.
All right. Hey, guys. I'm Kim Parsons. I actually really like that Beth and I are presenting on the same day after her presentation because we both use wikis and we use them so differently and to really different student groups. I used wikis in my class. It's called Human Systems 1, and it is the first in a 2-course sequence. And it is a class for dental assisting students. My dental assisting students is a cohort of 24 students, and they are mainly on campus together all the time. And then each semester they have one online course. So it's a little bit different dynamic because the students that are involved in this course already know each other, and they have interaction on a regular basis. They are dental assisting students, however, prior to beginning in the program, and this is the first semester of a 2-semester program, they only have 3 prerequisite courses that they have to take. So many of these students are coming to us as, a lot of them take their prereqs like over the summer after high school and come straight into dental assisting, or they're coming to us with very limited experience at the collegiate level. So my course was quite different in how it was set up, and as far as the learning, Dr. Bottom had these higher level learners in their master's degree, and I have learners who really have not had much experience at the university level at all. So I had to really keep that in mind as I was preparing the class. And this is a course that basically goes through, it's a 2-semester course, it basically goes through each of the body systems. And so there's quite a lot of content in it. And my students sometimes really have a hard time digesting that. And for these beginning students, what I do in this course, and I promise I'm getting to wikis just to help you understand why I did it, is their examinations are open book and open note. And I find a lot of value in that for this particular course. Now they are timed examinations, so they have to have some knowledge, some base knowledge, and they have to at least have knowledge of where they can find the information that they need. But I find a lot of value in my students having to go back through my notes that I've given them, my PowerPoints, or go back through their book and find the answers to the questions that I'm asking them, and really learn that. But what I found, this is the 6th time I've taught this course, and it's the 3rd time online, is that students were not reading the book, shocker, and so they were not as prepared for those timed examinations as I thought they should be. And of course my students were coming to me and they were saying, Dr. Parsons, we really need a study guide because you need to provide us with what we need to know. Okay, so you get my drift, right? So Laura helped me come up with the brilliant idea. Really, it was Laura's idea, and I was kind of a little bit resistant because I'd never used wikis. And she was like, no, let's do this. Is having the students devise their own study guide for the exam using a wiki. And so my wikis were a little bit different than Beth's. What I did is I divided my assignment into, click on it. Oh my, let's make sure I'm not making a weird face. You know, whenever you make those overview videos, the thumbnail, every time my face is like, one of my students actually is friends with my niece who texted me a picture of the thumbnail one day. And she's like, I heard this is your weekly video this week. That's awesome.
did, you guys, is I divided. Yeah, no, that's a true story. That was last week. I made them devise a study guide to help them prepare for their exams, and they did this utilizing a wiki. And what I did is I put my students in groups of 2. And originally, I'm going to be honest with you, originally the plan was to have the computer auto-populate or auto-assign my students to groups of 2. But when we prepared the shell, obviously there were no students in it, and then I didn't do it correctly. So I had to end up assigning students into groups for the wiki. And one thing that I really liked about that, because I did have knowledge of these students because they're also with me on campus, is I intentionally assign students who don't talk to each other and never sit by each other in class and never pick each other to work together, because I am mean like that. And I wanted them to branch out a little bit. You would not like me to be your instructor. And so I tried to, when I did the wiki, I tried to make it explanatory as to how they would access it, right? So there are only 2 exams in this course. So there are 2 study guides. And so, you know, I gave them exactly what to do. This is what you click on. This is how you do it. Let me see if I, I'll show you. So in this particular, I ended up having 6 groups because we have 12 students this year. So I gave them instructions and then I assigned them. So whenever they went to their week 6 or whatever it is, it would just pull up their wiki for the 2 individual students that were assigned to that group. One of the things that I loved about the wikis, now my students were all freaked out by it because they were not familiar with it either. And on this first one, I was freaked out as well. Because this was my first go around, and what if it was a big flop in front of my students and I didn't know how to answer it. Laura was fabulous. She responded to my questions right away. She was so very helpful. So my students could click on it and they could start their study guides, and I gave them very loosey-goosey like criteria for this so that they could do what they wanted. What I really liked about it, let me go to a grade 1 so that you can see. Is that I could see how much work each student was doing. Now, we talked beforehand, and it was specified in the syllabus that that the 2 students would get the same grade for the study guide, for the completed study guide. And I may revise that in the future. I haven't decided yet. This past fall was the first time I did these wikis. But what I really enjoyed is I could see, well, this isn't a good one. Let me go to, I know someone who did a lot of alterations on there. So let me go to that one. Okay, I think this is this one. I could see how much they went in and edited. And each time they edited, I could see what they added to it from the previous experience. And then what I did, and I don't know, there probably was an easier way, but I pulled up 2 windows, and I would pull up the 2 students that were assigned to the group side by side in the windows so that I could compare who did what work. I'm sure there's an easier way. Larissa in her head is probably like, Kim, there's a much easier way. But that's how I did it. I pulled them up the 2 windows side by side, and so I could compare student A did this and student B did this. And student A went back and put all this effort in, or student B did not, or they did, or whatever. So it allowed me to kind of see, these were new students to me, obviously, in the fall. It allowed me to kind of see their process and how they kind of do things. Because I had students like the one I just pulled up where they each submitted something once and they were done. You know, a lot of students told me that they prepared stuff in Word and then copied and pasted it over. So maybe that's why there was only one. This particular student is very conscientious and makes a really big effort to do things to the best of her ability. And so she went in there a bajillion times, right? So I can see, and I could click on version 21 and scroll down and see what was in there. And then I could click on version 24 and compare it to version 21. If I scrolled all the way down, she had a lot of stuff in there, to see how much effort and what they were doing. I liked the wikis because it gave us some interaction in this online course that probably would have been more challenging, because it is a very cut and dry course, and it's kind of dry content. So I'm limited, or at least I'm not creative, and so my non-creativity limits me with what I can do online, right? That's why I have Larissa and Laura and Yuhan. I liked this because it got some interaction, and typically in this class we didn't have a lot of interaction because my thought was the students already see each other outside of this particular class, but I wanted to make this course meaningful to them as well and not just be something they had to check off their list to do. I had something else along that line. Now I'm having the Dr. Bonham brain freeze. What was the other thing I was going to tell you? Did you have a question, Walter? You look like you had a question.
No.
No, you were just super engaged in what I was saying. Okay. No, he looked like he had a question a second ago. What was I going to tell you? So in the future, I haven't decided yet if I want the computer to assign it or if I want to do it myself, because it ended up, it was a mistake. That was not what I intended, but I actually really liked assigning my students. I liked that they had to work together. And they did. I know a student that complained that her partner was not contributing as much as she would hoped, and she had to pick up the slack. But I liked that they had to work together, and I liked that I could see what each individual was contributing. And so next time, on the next go-around, I may grade individually. Again, it was my first go-around. I had no idea what to expect or even if I would be able to handle it technology-wise, because I'm really used to what I do. And I'm not good with change. That is also a shocker. So there were 2 study guides over the course of this particular course. And then within that, I had 6 groups for each study guide. So I had, quite a bit to grade, but it was worth it. It made the students engage with each other. It also helped me in doing an activity that they whined about and expected, but I did not feel like as a college professor and facilitator, it was my job to provide them with a study guide. And so this was good for us. I really wish that I hadn't lost my train of thought a second ago.
So I have notes that it's like been on their test grade.
So, yes, because here was the deal. Doing this study guide forced them to go in, not just listen to my presentation and not just pull up my PowerPoint, but actually forced them to go into the chapter. And so what I typically would find before is they would not finish the exam because they had a minute and a half per question is what I allow. It's just what I've always done. I don't know. So for a 50-question exam, they had 75 minutes. And if they were not prepared and didn't know, had not at least had some base knowledge of the chapter and the contents in it, they wouldn't finish their exam because they just would run out of time looking things up. So everyone finished all of my exams this semester, which was big. And they did really well on them for the most part, honestly. So that was good. Also, the students were super scared and they didn't want to do this, and they complained they complained to me that this was coming up. But I had good feedback on my set evaluations at the end of the semester. I mean, they did, obviously they don't love to do any assignments, right? They weren't like, thank you for assigning this. But I actually had 2 comments pertaining to the wikis that were positive. So I took that as a good sign for the first go round. Again, some things I may change is I may or may not, I'm still kind of flirting with it, is letting the computer assign. And then also grading, each individual within the group separately. But this is set up so that you can do that if you so choose. I just really enjoyed being able to see the progress. And these are due, mine were due every Friday at 5. And sometimes I'd log in on Tuesday and just see who was already working on it, what were they doing. And then when I logged in Friday morning, I would check their progress. Just Nothing except for my own knowledge of my students and to kind of get to know them better.
So each week they had to add questions to the cumulative study guide for like the midterm final?
Not each week. They could just do, it was just in the assigned week. So module 6 is open it opens the week before the test. So for 1 week before the test, then they had to formulate this. And then once my modules are open, they're open for the remainder of the semester, but I personally don't open everything up at the beginning. So I wanted them to make sure that that week before the exam that they were actually going in and reviewing instead of doing it along the way, personally. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Can you scroll down to the bottom?
Well, I can for $5.
Scroll down or turn your blackboard on top like that. No.
I'm not complaining about that either, whatever.
Hey, I'm sorry. It's knowledge.
Right? Okay, so what do you
So
look
that
at?
word's modified 70%.
Yes.
Do you take that as a good showing of how much that particular student did?
This particular student, not necessarily. I mean, just if someone has 70% and someone had 10%, that doesn't necessarily make me think that the 70% is a stellar student, put a lot of effort into it. Because as I was talking to my students, a lot of them did their work outside and then copied and pasted it into the wiki. So not necessarily, honestly. Mine was more based on the actual content and how in-depth their actual assignment was.
That was your reasoning behind the side or viewing
Right.
side.
But I wanted to see from the study guide who contributed what. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So was it 50-50? Was it, or did they split up the topics and then one person did all their topics really in depth and the other person kind of dropped the ball and did it. So that's why I did them side by side. So I could see, I guess, the depth of the work that they did. Not so much how many times they went in and added things. This particular student, God bless her, she's not great with technology. And so she just wanted to work in here. She didn't want to work anywhere else and have any other technological features that could use it. But the reason I did side by side is so I could compare from the actual study guide the depth of what they put in, what they presented in there.
So the wikis were available to the students on test day?
The wikis were available to the students on test day. So if they really wanted to use their stuff.
Was it pretty day exam?
My exams are set up. I mean, I do the once you're in, and once you're out, you're out. If they are savvy enough and they can pull up 2 windows and they want to do it, I'm okay with that. Because, again, in this particular course, there's so much content that if they have gone through and they have made this study guide based upon the content in my presentations and in their textbook, I'm good with that because I feel like that's a really good learning tool and that they're seeing it and they're having to, write it down. They're having to have comprehension of it at some level. So I'm okay with that. Everything in here was open book, open notes. So if they wanted to use their study guide, I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm just.
Not in every class, but in this one, yes.
Well, I'm just looking at it from the technological standpoint.
Right.
As Blackboard part, I was terrified to think that a student thought it would be okay
To go toggle in and out.
to toggle in and out of the exam. And so,
But they wouldn't be able to toggle in and out because it would.
well, I mean,
Right.
it's just like if somebody else did it and they set up their exam differently, they may not have just taken that thought process through to say, okay, how do I make sure my students don't accidentally kick themselves out of the exam?
Okay.
That's the only reason I was bringing it up.
And that didn't even occur to me, honestly,
And
previously.
so, like for me, like you two, because if you call the Blackboard guy, which is why you should always call it this dead guy, you get way too much of an honest opinion out of me. Because I'll just give you my honest opinion. And I'm like, what are wikis for? you know, but you two have come up with like the two best ideas. And I really like that because
I mean, let's go home now. See you later.
because like when I take an online exam, I have a study guide that I or any exam period, I always make my own study guide. And so you're giving these students keys to success. So you two are the first people to make me like Wiki somewhat. Because before I was just like, Blackboard, you put all this crap where I have to explain what's the difference between Wiki and journaling. That's important.
Right.
And so, but I really like this, and this would be something really great, you know, for distance learning, online learning, whatever you call yourself this week, to really develop out, because it's a really, really great idea. But I just want to help us think through all of the technological challenge that students would face, because they're like, oh, I got this great wiki, and then they go to take their test.
Right.
Then they say, well, how do I get back to this wiki? And if they're not technically savvy, then they're angry.
Right.
Because they're like, I can't get back to this. And of course, you're thinking, why didn't you just open it up in Internet Explorer and open it up in Chrome, and you can have this, you know, you'd be surprised who couldn't think that through.
Right. Right. And that's honestly, that's something I didn't think of ahead of time, but we didn't encounter that this semester, but it doesn't mean it wouldn't something in the future.
Some of that is precluded.
Right. Correct.
You know, as a time test, and you know, you've got so much time to do it. And if you're talking yourself out, that's one.
Well, I do the forced completion.
Yeah. So they have.
How many students, out of curiosity, how many of your students, you know, it kicked me out and I wasn't done, or I didn't get the last 8 questions, or?
Not so many in the past year or so. I mean, probably for every exam, maybe one. I mean, I don't get a lot.
Typically respond to students. I know it's off the topic of Wiki, but
So typically I'll go in and I'll look at their, you know, and see, like a lot of times when they say that, it shows that it's kicked them off right away, right? I had a student last week that said she was kicked off. This is being recorded. It depends. For the most part, I will give them the benefit of the doubt. If it is a student that I have reason to doubt, then I approach it from a different way, and we kind of have to go through. But honestly, most of the time, at least and I don't know how accurate the timer is on Blackboard, honestly. Because sometimes when I look at it, when I look at the time in which it says a student took to take an exam or a quiz, I have another class, and it said the student took 1 minute to take this quiz. It was only 10 questions, but I thought they were hard. Like, it would take me more than 1 minute to read through all the questions. So I'm not 100% trusting of the Blackboard timer, but usually I'll give them the benefit of the doubt unless I can prove otherwise on the timer, or unless I have reason to not, and then we kind of go from there. So, but honestly now, I'm maybe one an exam, not a lot. I think because they also know that I'm kind of a mean instructor, and I mean, I will say too bad, so sad about a lot of things and move on. So I had a student email me yesterday that swears that she did quiz 4. Now we're on quiz 9. And she doesn't know why it's not appearing, but she knows she answered every one of those questions. And I was like, too bad, so sad, sister. You should have notified me during the week quiz 4, right? And no, didn't, but it's fine. You haven't clicked on any of it. And I enable my statistics on everything on Blackboard. If you go to my site, look, everything, even things that you think probably you don't need it for, just in case I ever need to go back to anything. I have a couple times, so I'm kind of anxious with that. So
I really am impressed with you, Judy, because what I heard was, you know, when I talked about my students, which is a different population than your students, and yours are coming in with no frame of reference,
right.
and what you are doing is saying, well, Welcome to college. And I would help you be successful. These are the ways I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But to have them develop their own study guide, I think is an awesome idea. Because I don't believe in study guides anyway. You go to study
I
guides,
don't
you make
either.
your own study guide.
I don't either. This was our compromise, honestly.
Well,
I've never done
I
a
don't
study
know where
guide
it came
ever.
up. You know, where that everybody was a study guide. It's like,
Right.
well, go get your own dendro, you know, you make up your own study. But what you're doing with this particular technology are so many skills that we want them to have as a college student who ultimately will be a dental
Right.
or dental assistant.
Assistant. Yeah.
Right. That I think is really awesome.
We're working on it. We work on them. Slowly but surely.
I just wanted to say, usually as a general rule, people who get kicked out of exams and asked to be let make an exam does not usually improve their overall score. Not usually. But now, if it was like she was saying week 4 to week 9, that's something completely different. And so, you know, if you just put something in your syllabus, you know, you have to contact me in so many hours.
Well, my issue has been with that because I've done times, I've done, hey, once you start, you can't, you know, go back in, can't backtrack on questions to eliminate some of those types of things. But whenever they do get kicked out, and I think it was technology or whatever, I can't go back in and let them, they have to go in and take the entire thing over again. They can't just finish the last questions or
Right.
whatever. There's no way to do that, is there? I've not found it yet.
Unless they're, if you turn forced completion off and they get kicked off, they go back in immediately.
And just
But if we're
finish what's
talking-
remaining.
Yeah, but if we're talking about sometime after the fact, then no. So you know,
And I
it
do,
would only make sense, but you know, right? Blackboard has to keep charging us for many, many years to come to, you know, provide
And
features.
on that
should be
note,
there.
I've also kind of played with the idea because I used to have a lot of students get kicked off, and then it was suggested to me somewhere, I don't know where, because I would make all the questions available at once. Then it was suggested to me to make them available individually because if they had to continue to press, then it would let Blackboard know that they're still there. But then I had students complain about that because if they were sitting in class, they could look through all their questions at once and go through the questions they knew first. So I've kind of gone back and forth on that too. And this semester I changed it back to all the questions at once. And I still have had a pretty low percentage, but I mean, I do timed, I do force completion, like, yeah, I do all that. Okay. All right, thank you all so much.
You're welcome so much. Thank you.